Well, the Cleveland Browns are either in trouble or they're having a great Monday. It's one of the two, right? Because they are in a little bit of trouble potentially with an investigation going on around some Hue Jackson tanking payment allegations. They also extended Denzel Ward, though, making him the highest paid cornerback. And we've got some USFL talk as well, all on today's episode
Can't stop us.
of Locked. Oh, can't do it. You can't stop it. I know you want us to stop, but it's not happening. It's all on today's episode of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? It is the Locked On NFL podcast, and it is Tuesday. Thank you so much, as always, for making Locked On NFL your first listen of the day. Or I guess it's Monday, but it's Tuesday's episodes. But as you know, you've got on these Tuesday episodes Luke Braun at Luke Braun NFL, the daily host over at Locked On Vikings, and myself, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola, daily host over at Locked On Saints. We appreciate you so much for being here with us, whether you're watching live Monday night or you're listening later. We appreciate you very much for being here and making us a part of your day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Luke, big news coming out of the Cleveland Browns. Take your pick, obviously, in terms of the big pieces that have come out there. But I think that the headline here is that there are all of these Hue Jackson allegations that came up and then were kind of recanted shortly thereafter. But it seems like there's going to be a bit of an investigation going on here for the Cleveland Browns, who maybe are self-sabotaging themselves at this point with the amount of bad news, right, that they've been connecting themselves with. There's a ton going on here. How do you feel about this whole tanking situation if this were to come out as true, that they did actually have some incentives for not performing at the top of their game?
Yeah, and that's obviously all like this allegation, he said, kind of whatever, but it is interesting for as reprehensible as their offseason has been. They probably are going to have the highest Super Bowl odds they've had since, I don't know, the 80s? Who knows?
Yeah, right.
But look, if it's not expressly forbidden in the rules, in the NFL rules, to lose on purpose, and paying somebody per loss feels like it's a lot easier to prohibit than like, did you lose on purpose? And I get the argument that comes of, well, if you lose and you get a higher draft pick and that's going to be better, why go 6-10 when you could go 3-13 and get Trevor Lawrence? I get it. It shouldn't be allowed. The game is better when everybody tries to win. And the point of this is to have a better game. I have always kind of thought that even if it is allowed, it's not the best way forward, because it's easier to turn a 6-10 team into a contender than it is to turn a 3-13 team. The 3-13 team is worse. You have to add more players to it, and while you have more resources, you have to successfully turn more of those resources into something good, and there's more points of failure to that, and that means that you have a lower chance of actually building a contender. That's why the Lions are drafting top 5 every year instead of turning all those top 5 draft picks into a contender. But got my Lions dig in. But
a tradition like none other.
even granting that tanking works, which I don't think it does, but even if I grant you that it does, it shouldn't be allowed. It sucks. Mm-hmm. Losing when you are a fan of a team and you pay to go watch that team, or you turn it on TV, you buy tickets, you deserve to see two competitive teams trying to beat each other. And if the Dolphins and the Browns undid that, then I think absolutely, Cole in the chat says tanking should never be allowed, much less encouraged. Absolutely. Get that out of here. Find the Browns whatever draft picks you want, and I say, yeah, to hell with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, we're so fixated on this idea of we have to protect the integrity of the game, blah, blah, blah. But like you said, that's not really a hard and fast rule, right? Like, you're just kind of at that point maybe trying to guilt people into playing along in that way. But if there's nothing out there that specifically says that, hey, this is something that can actually happen, and whether you make a rule about it or not, a part of it is holding teams accountable when there is evidence that it happened. So if they find evidence, hopefully this is the thing that maybe sets the precedent to get rid of all of that, to kind of eschew it finally and get it out of the way. It wasn't all bad for the Cleveland Browns. So whether strategically planned or completely coincidental, before the news about the allegations that Hue Jackson made on Twitter, did he make those allegations on Twitter, by the way?
Well, he also he joined in the lawsuit with Brian Flores.
With Brian Flores, right.
Yeah, so there's court documents to all this and stuff, and there'll be discovery and stuff and depositions or whatever they need to do, which is going to be where the real interesting stuff comes out.
Right.
But I mean, he did tweet out. He kind of spilled the beans, and then he had to recant it really quick, but that's enough to spur an investigation.
Yeah, he responded to somebody's tweet who said Jimmy Haslam wasn't offering $100,000 per loss, or Hugh should be on the Forbes list. To which Hugh responded, "Trust me, it was a good number." So
that'll do it. That was, by the way, that's not new info. That was back February 1st when all of the Stephen Ross, Brian Flores lawsuit stuff was coming out.
Right.
That has had quite the impact on the league, this thing already. But yeah, that's not new, but it's important to this is why they're opening an investigation. It just kind of takes the league a long time to process stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So before that news broke about the investigation being opened up against the Cleveland Browns, we got different news from the Cleveland Browns. And again, whether planned as a strategic PR move or whether completely coincidental, news broke of Denzel Ward being made the highest paid cornerback in NFL history, a new 5-year, $100.5 million contract with over $71 million guaranteed. I believe it's over 40 some odd million dollars fully guaranteed as well. And this is a guy that they drafted back in that 2018 draft class, same draft class as Baker Mayfield, actually, now that I think about it and everything. And then you get into all of these other pieces. Denzel Ward has been a very good corner when healthy and has been one of the top players on that Cleveland Browns defense. How does this impact the Cleveland Browns to have him locked down as they move forward into 2022, hopefully being competitors?
Yeah, it's... If they're going to try to be competitors at the cost of their morals, right?
Right.
You got to keep
you also
guys
have
in.
the Deshaun Watson situation around all this too.
Yeah, and I think there's a bigger conversation to be had that I want to talk to you about what as we get to the draft too, because the Browns spent a top 5 pick on a cornerback, and now they're spending cornerback money on a cornerback, and how do you maneuver that? But I think we all agree generally Denzel Ward is worth the extension, right? He's one of those corners to me that you don't hear about for the best reason.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is, I think, the headline here. But there's a more interesting value conversation, I guess, that you and I can have that's more up our alley, I guess. But first things first, I want to talk to you about something that I have recently added to my diet that is... I feel great. It's wild. AG1 by Athletic Greens. It is a scoop of stuff. You mix it with water or whatever, and it has 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. It's a special blend of ingredients that helps your gut health. Now, gut health is kind of a new science that we're finding out a lot about how much that can help you if you are trying to stick to a diet, or if you're just trying to be healthy, and the flora in your gut, how much that affects other parts of your health you wouldn't even know. You would never think that it affects. But really, the story here is that the founder of Athletic Greens was experiencing a ton of gut health issues and had to take this crazy supplement regimen to keep it up. And it was $100 a day. It was insane. And so he created Athletic Greens to try to find a cheaper way to get all the stuff he needed without having to take 10,000 pills every morning. So AG1 by Athletic Greens is the product. To make it easy, Athletic Greens can give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NFL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just 1 scoop and a cup of water every day, and that's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health.
Love that.
I also want to talk to you. Yeah, it's crazy. I also want to talk to you guys about betting. You can bet on stuff in the draft, like who the first round pick will be. There was a time when Aiden Hutchinson was like minus 300 favorite to go 1 overall. Now we're thinking maybe it's Travon Walker. Now there's a little steam elsewhere. It's really fun in a year where you don't know who the first overall pick is going to be. Mm-hmm. Like last year we had Trevor Lawrence and we knew it was him, and it's like so you can't bet on that. Right. You can bet on it. You can find that kind of stuff at BetOnline. You can bet on anything too. Basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs are coming on soon. You can bet on baseball games, golf, tennis, MMA. You can even play your favorite Vegas casino games. You can build weird parlays with their player props builder. I know y'all are into that. I'm really into the live betting apparatus. I like betting in the middle of a game, feeling out the flow of a game. So whatever you want, you can find it at betonline.net, where the game starts.
And we appreciate you so much for making Locked On NFL your first listen of the day every day here on the podcast, as well as over on YouTube. I want to tell you real quick a little bit about our NFL draft programming that we have going on. A ton of fun. So we got a bunch of stuff. So right now on the Locked On NFL podcast, as well as over in the Ultimate NFL Mock Draft 2022 podcast feed, you can find our Ultimate Mock Draft, which includes selections from all of our local experts on the 32 first round selections, as well as the first picks from all of those teams that select outside of the first round, with input from guys like, I don't know, a Hall of Famer and 3-time Super Bowl champion Michael Irvin, for instance, who's going to be talking about a lot of the DBs, a lot of the wide receivers, all that, as well as former NFL linebacker Mark Herzlich, who's a part of all that too. So there's a ton of great stuff over there. That's premiering all throughout this week, as well as on Monday. And then next week here on the Locked On NFL YouTube page, which you might be watching live, you might be watching later, that will be, we'll have our 3 days of live NFL draft coverage coming from our studios in Dallas. So lots of really, really great stuff going on there, starting an hour before night 1. Now, we're talking about the draft. We're going to have 3 days of live draft coverage. We have the Ultimate Mock Draft, but is the draft really the best place for some of these teams, depending upon how they utilize it? So we had started to have this conversation here a second ago about Denzel Ward. And I cover a team that presently right now is sort of using the NFL draft as a means of cost control. So instead of giving money out on the open market for players that are either in free agency or even retaining players, the Saints letting Marcus Williams go to Baltimore, for instance, on a 5-year big deal, they're turning to the draft so that they can start to cost control and work their way back to a more, let's just say, less maneuver necessary salary cap situation, right? So is that really...
You mean you're trying to get out of the insane debt that Mickey Loomis,
they're trying to make some adjustments. Yes, the eighth highest
small country's GDP worth of debt.
They're in. Absolutely. So now, you're starting to see some of these teams that are paying their talent, like we saw with Denzel Ward, who, like we said, it deserves every bit of that money, right? 74 career NFL passer rating allowed when targeted. He's got, I think it's 10 interceptions on his career with only 14 touchdowns allowed, but he's got 31 pass breakups as well. So he makes a ton of plays. He obviously is playing that position. It's why he got top cornerback money. So is that the better route to go, to use the draft to keep yourself from having to spend money out on the open market or in terms of retaining players?
To me, that is exchanging one currency for another. I've been talking about this on Locked On Vikings a lot, but it's like putting all your money into Bitcoin and then spending that on a giraffe or something, and then telling the IRS that you didn't spend any money this.
I didn't spend any money
because all you spent was Bitcoin. Yeah, it's like it's just two different kinds of currency, and it's all a resource management game, right? It's right. I have this many draft picks, and I'm given this much money every year to work with, and here are my avenues through which to do it, and I need to turn it into the best team I can, right? That's the whole deal. Yeah. And I think too often we get wrapped up in trying to make that perfectly efficient rather than trying to make that the best roster possible. And I think a lot of people looked at that Denzel Ward extension as like they've like talked themselves into a bad thing. I'm going to call out by name. I'm going to call out Kevin Cole at PFF, who had this take. And I think it's I get what he's saying, and his take is basically like, look, they spent a top 4 pick on a premium position, and now they have to pay that premium position premium money, and so that rookie contract didn't save the money that you usually can, because they had like because of the way the math works out. And essentially the only way to make that untrue is to take a quarterback. So if you take a quarterback in the first round and you get that 4 years of that beautiful quarterback on a rookie deal thing, right? You're saving so much money. This dude should cost $30 million and I'm paying him a rookie deal. In the top 5, those rookie deals are actually significant enough, but they're still saving a ton of money. But if you take, for an extreme example, take a slot corner in the first round in the top 5, right? Well, most slot corners make like $1 million, $1.5 million. You're still paying that guy more than you usually would pay a slot corner. So you're not saving money and you're spending a premium pick on it, right? But where Kevin Cole took it like in another direction where it's like, and now that you have to pay him, it's actually like a bad spot. They shouldn't have taken, and it's like they shouldn't have done this. But here's the deal. If you told me, if I picked 4th overall in this draft, and you told me that I was going to pick Sauce Gardner, and he was going to play for my team, be a starter, and then he was going to later get a market rate extension for 5 years, and everyone would agree that he deserves it. Kevin Cole's point is not that Denzel Ward doesn't deserve this extension, that he's not good enough or anything. It's more about like positional value and trying to be perfectly efficient with it. But he's so worried about being efficient that he forgot about being good. And that's where it loses me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, that makes a ton of sense. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, so the fact is that he's good and you've got a good player. And that, because what we can't take for granted that 4th overall pick is going to turn into a good quarterback or a good slot corner or a good whatever, and we're saving money, but did we make a worse team? The point is to make a good team, not to make a perfectly cost-efficient one.
Yeah, I think that's the thing for me too, is that very likely, like if you're using a premier selection like that, a top NFL selection or top NFL draft selection to pick a premium position that's not quarterback, usually you're doing that because you're already set at quarterback. And that might not have been the truth for the Cleveland Browns come this offseason, but certainly was where they thought they were headed. So it made a lot of sense for them to make that selection. And so I think I look at this as, like you talked about, the exchange of currency. And there's a built-in mechanism in the NFL that enforces this as well, the compensatory pick formula, right? You lose a free agent, but if you don't sign one to you sign one to a lower contract and then somebody else gets signed away to a lower contract, you don't sign somebody to another comparable contract, you might get a 3rd round pick, which pans out sometimes, right? And so there is also this other piece. Yeah, there is this other piece mechanism within the NFL that also enforces that. And some teams like the New England Patriots, for instance, eat off of compensatory selections, right? They don't really use them well. They go back to back at 91 and 101 at tight ends for whatever reason in the 2020 NFL draft. But when it comes down to what they usually try to do I remember it vividly and being very confused. But you see that, and then you also see them wait until after the draft to sign some of these marquee free agents that are left out there, something that I still think they have the opportunity to do again this year, because then they come out of the compensatory formula, right? So they're no longer compensatory free agent additions. So you have this sort of mechanism within the NFL that also reinforces this behavior of, but if we can hit the draft selection, which is way more volatile than paying the proven commodity, then we don't have to pay the proven commodities and we have more money to spend on proven commodities. It all kind of just goes circular for me. And it's kind of a strange way to think about it. I think that I look at a team like the Los Angeles Rams, who I've commended before in terms of their roster building approach of, they hit on those draft selections at really, really important positions, including cornerback, which actually they ended up doing via a trade, but they solidified all of those pieces and then landed some cornerstones for their defense in terms of pass rush, in terms of even on the offensive side with Cooper Kupp, for instance. And so they did all of that with new acquisitions of rookie contracts, but then went to the open market to pay sort of these mercenary one-year deals while being able to also invest in players long-term. So they've sort of found a way to check all of the boxes as opposed to try to supplement one with the other.
Right. And if you can find a way to use a draft pick to save more money than that draft pick would be worth, that's great. But when it comes to the rookie contract thing, especially at cornerback, having a cornerback on a top 5 rookie contract saves you, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but just call it $10 million, right? And if that saves you, is $10 million worth a top 4 pick to save, are we thinking about it the right way? You know what I mean? So if you wanted to save more money than that, Like, are we thinking about it the right way? I'll leave it with this. I'll channel my inner Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, who's Wall Street dude, right? He's an investment guy, commodities trader. And as a commodities trader, if you go up to anybody in Wall Street and you ask them what percentage of their portfolio is liquid, how much liquid cash they have, if they're doing a good job, it's none. Everything should be in something. So to tie this into the tanking and the Browns thing and all that stuff, you don't want to just compile liquid assets. You got to have it tied up in something. And then maybe you can take that out and turn it into something else, trade a guy for other picks or do like the Marcus Williams thing and let him go get your compensatory picks. You can do that stuff, but you should always, you should never just be sitting on liquid assets. That's just not a good way to trade.
In fact, you should be $70 million over with all of your liquid assets at all times.
That's how the Trumps got rich. Let's talk about your car. Speaking of things that are difficult to afford, car maintenance can be tough, but let me help you out with it. So if you need to fix if you're a do-it-yourselfer, go to rockauto.com. Enter your make, your year, and your model. Make sure you're getting something compatible with your car, and they will basically send you something like from those manufacturers, so you can cut out the middleman of a brick and mortar auto shop going to the counter, asking if they have it. They have to ship it in a week or so. You can cut out all that hassle. It gets delivered right to your door, and you can use it. If you're not a do-it-yourselfer and you're a regular person who's not like a total black thumb, go to a mechanic. They'll tell you what repairs you need. Order that part, and then just be like, "Hey, I'll just pay you for the labor," and you will probably be able to save $1 that way. So why spend 30, 50, even 100% more? Because that is what they are going to upcharge you, because they know you don't know how much the scrap costs. So why let them take advantage of you? Rock Auto is going to take care of you. They are a family company. They've been doing this online for 15 years, and they are going to take care of you. So whatever you end up buying at rockauto.com, make sure in the How You Heard About Us section that you let them know that Locked On sent you. Rock Auto, amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need.
Continuing on and wrapping up this Tuesday edition of Locked On NFL, Luke Braun, Ross Jackson. We are here, and Luke, it was sloppy, but it was exciting. Spring football is back. The USFL kicked off. We have some winners in the Stallions Gamblers, the New Orleans Breakers, a little hair toss for you there, and the Tampa Bay Bandits as well. I thought it was a fun and exciting weekend of football. Great to see some of the kind of innovations that they're doing. There's a drone on the field at all times, which is super dope, and a bunch of stuff going on all throughout. Not a huge swing in rules or anything like that. And it was sloppy football because, you got 3 weeks to prepare to go out there, and you have some quarterbacks that can't read defenses.
A lot of blown protections.
Yeah, those kinds of things. But it's great to see spring football back. It's great to see the USFL back for the first time since, 1984 when they went under? And Sam Mills and all these other guys poured into the NFL. And so I thought it was Doug Flutie as well, of course. So a lot of really exciting stuff, a lot of really good stuff coming out of football this weekend. But you've got two guys that are like on your radar as players that maybe fans might want on their teams after the first weekend of action.
Yeah, so look, if you're watching the USFL, you either have a team you're into, like if you're a New Orleans person, you root for the Breakers. You are just like me, and you're just a total sicko that's obsessed with football and will take whatever he can get. Or you have a favorite team and you're trying to scout and see who's out there. So for those third group of people, two names that stand out, go watch the next New Orleans Breakers game and watch Devin Bellamy. He's an edge rusher, and he made that tackle's life hell. That was a dominant performance. I haven't seen domination like that since Myles Garrett went up against Rashad Hill in Week 4 of 2021. It was disgusting. Like that dude was on his butt. He was chasing the whole time, and he totally broke the game for the Philadelphia Stars. And the other guy is on the Tampa Bay Bandits.
I want to say real quick, Davin Bellamy, 3 sacks and 6 total tackles in that game, by the way. 3 sacks in that game.
Yeah, and a lot of pressures and running around and sacks that turned into someone else's sacks.
Right.
Just lived in the backfield. And the other guy plays for the Tampa Bay Bandits, who played on Monday night after a weather delay. Cheyenne O'Grady, who got, you might have the stats in front of you, like 6 catches or something like that for the Bandits. And he was a really versatile player. And that's the kind of thing that can end up making a team at the next level, is somebody who is able to be on the field every play because he can block and also be an outlet and be a deep threat. And he was kind of able to contribute in every part of the field. And that's the kind of things that coaches are going to look at to find somebody who actually like can contribute. Ross, you're muted.
My bad. That's a rookie mistake. That was
I'm
a
leaving
USFL.
this in on the podcast too.
Oh, please do. That was a USFL moment for me right there. I only had 3 weeks to prep, right? Chad O'Grady finished with 8 total catches. He got 2 more catches after we started recording while they were just running out the clock at that point with a 17-3 win.
Oh my goodness.
For those Bandits. 8 catches for 86 yards, including a long of 24, 11 targets. No other player on that Bandits team with more than 5 targets. So he was, as you said, in the entire offense for the Tampa Bay Bandits. And remember, he came into that 2020 class that included guys like Okwebanam as well as a few others that were out there that, was Josiah DeGuara and a few, and those David Asiasi, Cole Kmet, for instance. Those
Adam
guys
Troutman, your guy.
Adam Troutman, of course.
The subject of the greatest day 3 trade 2 teams have ever made.
When the Saints traded away their entire day 3 worth of selections just to get up
and
to
then traded back in at the end of that
old
7th round
Tommy Stevens
to
get a
spite the
quarterback.
Panthers.
That's right.
Just because the Panthers wanted him.
Just for the heck of it. And so, look, that's absolutely right. So I'm going to miss the pettiness, but I hope that it's still going to be around. But he was a part of that tight end class that he ended up going undrafted, though. Cheyenne O'Grady did, to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals, of course, loaded up at tight end. They had these guys. They brought in Thaddeus Moss soon after, but then they had C.J. Uzomah. They, of course, had Travis Kelce for a little. Was it Travis Kelce? No.
That's a much different guy.
Yeah. Who was the great tight end that they had? They had a great tight end over there that I've now forgotten. Doesn't matter. He ended up getting buried behind all of these guys and ended up being in a situation to where he just didn't really have a job anymore. And now he gets an opportunity here at the USFL, which I imagine is what this is kind of all about, right? So it's great.
Right. Yeah. It's about second chances. But then you have these guys that always show up in the spring leagues. Like this Luis Perez is playing again. He plays for the New Jersey Generals. Yep. You have guys like Jordan Ta'amu, who looks fantastic. He looks like by
he had
far
an AAF stint.
And in XFL, he was a Battlehawks
XFL,
quarterback. Right. And then I believe he eventually lost his job to Taylor Heineke, who started for the Washington Commanders. So
right.
Yeah. That is, I think, where it's at. And if you're looking for an interesting quarterback flyer, I think Ta'amu's your guy. He's kind of shown that he has it in a few of these spring leagues. And he has, I think, at least a shot to go see if he can't win a backup job or something, kind of pull a PJ Walker. But he looked really, really fantastic in his debut.
Yeah. No, I thought he was great. I mean, he looked way better than the New Orleans Breakers quarterback who had some trouble. Let's just say had some trouble. Tyler Croft, by the way, is the tight end that I was trying to remember in Cincinnati. He was the one that took over soon after, of course. Tyler Eifert was out the door.
Tyler Eifert, who couldn't stay healthy.
Right.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we won't talk about Kyle Sloter here on this show. Not on. Not me.
But I'll tell you, defense and special teams all over the place. Doesn't it? It feels like every kickoff is going to be broken. Like, it feels like every kickoff return is going back to the house.
Because they get so many more of them are returned because of different rules and the way that they set up their kickoffs, which is, I think, also modeled a little bit after the XFL, which tweaked stuff about the kickoff to try to prevent injuries without losing returns, because that's what the NFL did. It was basically like, we'll just make them all touchbacks. Should be really cool stuff.
Yeah, looking forward to a second week, maybe a little bit more of a polished product. We know the XFL is also on its way back. Fan-controlled football is still on and running. How about Terrell Owens at 48 years old catching a touchdown pass in fan-controlled football? How great is that?
Zappers legend, 7-on-7. Let's go. The only active Pro Football Hall of Famer anywhere in any football organization.
That's right. Pretty incredible stuff. Shout out to Terrell Owens out there making dreams. Don't give up on your dreams, kids, or 48-year-olds. Don't give up.
Men. All right, look, everybody go check out the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. This is there's nothing more here. Go check that out. Check out the Ultimate Mock Draft. Go subscribe to it on YouTube, where we'll do live draft show and stuff like that. Go check all of that stuff out. For Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints, I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. We'll see y'all tomorrow on the Locked On NFL podcast, of course. Until then, take care.